How you guys doing? This is Derek with Woodworking. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to paint cabinet doors and cabinets. So I've gotten some comments in the past, people asking how we do it and how to go about painting their cabinets. And so I figured I'd make a video on this. I'm going to try to do my best to go into details of how you guys would do yours if you have a finish on them. Most of what we paint is doors that we made, like this one right here, which is obviously all raw wood, and it's been sanded up to 220 grit. So priming and painting this is going to be a little bit different than priming and painting, you know, say a cabinet and cabinet doors that have been on your kitchen for 20 years that are oak, you know. So it's going to be a little bit different. But our process is we sand to 220 grit. I'll just give you a quick outline. We spray our primer both on the front and back, let it dry fully, and then we sand it with 220. You can use 320, but typically we'll use 220, but you can really go either way. We've used both. After scuffing it with that, you then spray 2 coats of gallery on the front and back of the door. That is the best system that we have found, and they come out very good. Now, if you have cabinets in your house that are oak, that have had a finish on it, that have been there for like 20 years, it's going to be a little bit more complicated. I always would recommend trying to scuff them at least a little bit. I personally would always try to sand as much finish off as possible, but that might be because I am just OCD. But I would scuff as much as you can. Maybe use like a sander with like a foam pad so that you can get in the crevices and stuff like that. And then I believe the stuff you could use on something that has a finish, but I will have to check that to make sure. But Sherwin-Williams has an extreme bond primer, and that's made to bond to just about anything so that you can use it on something with lacquer. Now, then you would spray the extreme bond primer over your doors, let that dry obviously, and then spray 2 coats of this. Now, it depends on how far you want to go, because if it's oak, you're going to have that wider grain. The primer's not really going to fill all that in. It might fill some stuff in, but you're still going to see that grain through. So you would really probably want to go through and fill in everything, almost do like a skim coat over your doors, which at that point you have to ask yourself if it's really worth it, which I guess if you have a ton of time and you don't mind, then it is, you know. So that's how we go about that. I think that's all the details I'm going to give you guys on the front end. We're going to jump right to this and start painting. This is a cabinet that we have ready to go. If you're going to spray your cabinets, just make sure you mask everything out. I think you can see it. We use, it's got plastic on the sides and I did paper on the bottom. It just kind of went together that way. I ended up running out of blue tape, so I used some old white masking tape that we had, so hopefully that's going to work. But usually I have a bunch of masking materials around, but for some reason I don't know where my blue tape went. But let's jump to it. We're going to be spraying this stuff and we're going to be using the Graco Quickshot, so let's do it. Spraying cabinets can be kind of tricky. I made this little jig out of 2x4s and a Lazy Susan kind of spin ball bearing thing you can get from Home Depot. But it's nice because it lets me rotate the cabinet. That way I'm always spraying towards my spray booth. So the thing that I want to say about this stuff is do not put too much paint on it or it's gonna dribble. What I end up doing is just spraying the insides and the outsides, and enough overspray covers the top for it to be fine. So let's do that. I'm going to do these insides. And again, this is a 210 tip, and I'm spraying on a level 5. Do everything away from me. I don't do the top a ton so I don't get rid of my markings, but trying to do a light coat. And then that fan, like I said, is covering both the top and the side. So it's kind of getting it all in one pass, or the combination of 2 passes. So definitely make sure you don't put too much paint on, or it's definitely going to run. So now we have both the front and back primed. The next step is going to be sanding really quick. So that primer did a really good job. This is pretty smooth. The panel's a little rougher than the actual real wood part, but that's going to be fine. It's going to go really quick. I use the Festool RTS 400. I turn it down to about a 3 or a 4, and I use 220 grit. You definitely want to be careful not to stop in one place for too long, because you will easily sand right through the primer, and you don't really want to do that. So I'm going to try to go quick, sand the panel, sand the wood, and then I have a piece of hand sandpaper here to do some of the other edges and grooves. But let's jump right to this and start sanding this. Alright, so now that that is all hit, I could do the edges with the Festool, but sometimes it ends up taking off the primer just because it's hard to do those small areas with that. But what you can do is just use the hand sandpaper, just hit it really quick, because it's honestly is already pretty smooth. So I'm just hitting it to really just smooth it out a little bit, and then I'm hitting the actual corners so that this corner here, all the way down this edge, I'm going to hit that. And really, all you're doing is breaking any high spots that are there, which it doesn't really feel like there's a lot of, but if there are any, I'm going to break them down. The smoother the primer is, the better your paint's going to come out, because you're really just, the paint's going to echo whatever smoothness you have on the primer. So now, my mission style, like craftsman style grooves here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece of sandpaper and I'm going to sand those, and I'm going to finish off with a last right on the corner. So hit those. It really doesn't need that much sanding. Just feeling to make sure we're all good. Looks like there was a little something there. That's all good. Let's do the back. Our edges are all still good, but for the back, there's barely any lip here. So all I'm going to do is kind of just hit the corner. I'm not going to actually sand the vertical part there. And now you have your sanded door ready to be blown off. I'll blow it off just to make sure that it's all good and ready for paint. But after that, we'll be good to put 2 coats of the Gallery Series paint on it. So that's what we're going to be doing next. Now for the first coat of paint on the back, I'm going to spray it just like I sprayed the primer. That's kind of just the way that I spray each and every coat, so it's going to be the same. This is going to look repetitive because essentially I'm just adding more layers and more layers. I'm going to spray the 2 sides, spray that sweep, spin it, that side, and then finish the door. then it's done. I am bundled up a little extra today because it is like 6 or 8 degrees, so it is literally freezing, which shouldn't impact the paint or anything like that. It's coming from a 60-degree room. The paint's 60 degrees. I come out here, I spray it, I bring it right back inside, and it dries in that temperature. And that is how we paint cabinet doors. It's really repetitive. The way that I spray the primer and the paint is honestly all the same. You saw me prime the cabinet. You may not have saw me paint any cabinets, but that is the exact way that I paint. It's really just the same exact thing for all the coats. And all you're doing, like I said before, is building up the layers and adding that protection. And the most important thing to know is really just to know your paint and know how thin or thick you can spray it to make sure you don't have any runs, especially if it's something that's vertical. It's gonna give more of a chance for it to run down. So if you're painting cabinets in place, you're gonna wanna be really careful you don't spray those too thick. These, my door rack has a slight angle, but you can always place it someplace where it's flat. So if you do get a little too much paint, it shouldn't bother it too much because it'll be able to dry on a flat surface. But that is how we paint cabinets and cabinet doors. If you guys have any questions, shoot them down in the comments and like and subscribe.